Hey everyone, my name is Jack. Welcome to the channel. I cover a variety of topics, including personal finance, real estate, investing, financial independence, and that sort of stuff. So if you like this sort of content, be sure to give the video a like and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of my new stuff. But today I really wanted to talk about something that I've been thinking about given the pandemic that's now turned into a recession and the rising number of people who are unemployed, among many of other issues that people are facing right now economically. When I was in school, they really didn't teach anything about personal finance or really just about independence, economic or financial independence. Instead, what my financial education was limited to, at least up until college, was basically we did some compound interest formulas during math without really explaining the power of compound interest as it related to personal finance and the things it can do when you invest over the long term. We just kind of looked at it as a math equation rather than anything else. And then the other thing was we wrote a few checks, and that's pretty much it. That's all I really had up until college when I started, taking my own initiative and trying to teach myself about personal finance and seeing what you can do with some of the tools we have available in this country. But at least in part because it's not really covered in schools, a lot of people are just so vulnerable to crises because they don't even think to prepare for them, or even if they do, they don't really know how. And that's a real shame that our education system has failed in that particular way, since it's so important and affects literally every single person, no matter what career you ever go into. You always need to have some sort of grasp on your personal finances, yet school tends to ignore it, to the entire country's detriment. Before this turns into a rant about the education system, I have really been thinking about the situation that so many people are in right now, because despite having a decade of positive markets, a surging bull market at that, and plenty of opportunities to invest and make a lot of money in a lot of different areas, so many people still have found themselves with no savings, no investments to cover themselves once they lose their job. And that's really what financial independence is made for. Some people look at financial independence as this unobtainable thing that only rich people do, and that the goal of it is to get super wealthy, but that's not really what financial independence is. And through seeing what's been happening, it's given me a new perspective on what financial independence really means. And it's in the name. It's independence. It's security, so that when you lose your income source, when you lose your job, or if you choose to lose it by quitting, you have flexibility. You have options. You can do that because you have other income. You have other assets to pull from, and that you're not tied to one specific income stream that is your job. And what's happening to millions and millions of people right now is they're losing their jobs and they have nowhere to go to. And they're in a very dark, dark place, where they have families to feed, mortgages to pay, rent to pay, and no money to do it with because they don't have any savings. And despite having all these years of being employed and having lots of opportunities to do so, they didn't. And now the fact of the matter is they can't go back in time. They can't change their decision from back then, and now they're stuck. And now millions of people are waiting on the government and other organizations to bail them out. And there really isn't a lot of money to go around because the government's not very good at saving either. Maybe if we had personal finance education, our politicians would be a little bit better, but who knows? But because so many people don't have any money to turn to, they haven't set anything aside, they haven't invested in anything to produce any sort of residual income, they don't have any income right now other than things that are given to them by the government or friends and family, or worse yet, taking out credit card debt and other types of debt to pay just to live. And it's a really sad situation. There are people who had the means at one point to at least protect themselves to some degree, but now can't because they no longer have those means. And they may not have them for quite some time given the circumstances. The economy is going through a fundamental change right now, and it's already done lasting damage to a lot of people. And it will continue to do lasting damage as it does every single day. We have more and more people being laid off, and many of those jobs won't come back once things reopen, as terrible as that is. And it just shows the importance of trying to reach something like financial independence, even if you don't get there all the way. If you spend just a little bit of money each month towards your nest egg, towards passive income producing sources, even if it's just something like buying a few stocks every month, that is a step in the right direction, so that when you do lose your job, or even if you want to leave your job, you can. you still have means to at least cover some, if not all, of your expenses. That's security, and that's what financial independence is really about. And school doesn't teach you about financial independence. School teaches you about following directions, which certainly is a very useful skill for most people. Having discipline to follow a schedule and follow through with assignments is a useful skill, but it's not the only skill you'll ever need. And it might not even be the most important skill. Arguably, the most important skill is learning how to manage your time independently, so that when things like this happen, you know that you can at least manage and get by because you've used your time wisely to produce a better outcome for yourself rather than just following someone else's directions. So I've just been thinking of this hypothetical situation. I know the numbers are low, but let's say you make $1,000 per month and your expenses are $900 per month. So you have $100 left over to use for whatever you want. What's increasingly common for Americans, at least, is to spend that money on something they don't necessarily need. Maybe it's going out to an expensive restaurant, an extra time each month, or just paying for something that they don't actually need. It's not going towards something truly productive. It's not going towards something that will give them security in the event that they lose their job and no longer have those $1,000, but they still have those outstanding $900 for each month's expenses. So what if you took those $100 and each month you put it into a fund? You put it towards a savings account that was going to be used to buy you a rental property, or even buy a home that you can house hack, as I've talked about on this channel, where you buy a larger unit than you need, or maybe a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex or something like that with a low down payment mortgage. And then you increase your income by having multiple units pay you rent to offset some of your living expenses. That might not be super lavish. It might not be the most wealthy, the richest experience ever, but it is security. You have multiple streams of income that even if you lose your job, you're still going to have rental income to pay at least some, if not all of your expenses, which will give you the flexibility to make a better decision for yourself rather than having to take the first opportunity that's presented to you just because you're trying to make ends meet. There are simple yet powerful steps that people can take to make their situation better. And you have to do it while you have the chance. You cannot take anything for granted. If there's anything that this pandemic has taught us, it's that you can't take it for granted because you never know what's going to happen. A black swan event, as we like to call them in the financial world, will happen, and there's nothing you can do about it, and you have to be ready for it. Everyone on the planet would have liked to have prevented this pandemic from the get-go. No one wants to go through this. This sucks. People are dying. The economy is dying as well. We have a lot of problems on our hands that we really couldn't have avoided, at least all of them. And something like this will happen in the future. We don't know when. We never know when. But something bad is going to happen. Maybe you're going to lose your job because your company goes under. Maybe you hate your job and you decide to quit for your own mental stability. Who knows? But there are problems that arise at seemingly random times. Sometimes they're more systematic. It depends. There's a lot of things that go on in an economy and in someone's life. But you have to be prepared for those terrible things. As tempting as it is to go and spend everything you have on something that you want to do right now, take a look at your future. What if you don't have this income that you're relying on right now? What's going to happen? Are your obligations going to melt away? Because they probably won't. You still are going to have some basic expenses. Food, water, shelter, all that stuff. That's not going away for anyone. Everyone needs that. So how are you going to get the money to pay for it? Are you going to have residual streams of income? Are you going to work on your investments now so that you have the security later on and at least the flexibility to make a choice if you don't like the career you're in? Or maybe you do and you just want to work on things more, but you don't have the money to do them because the job you're working at right now doesn't pay you enough. If you're still in a decent position during this pandemic after all that's happened, you should not take anything for granted anymore. And if you're not already, you should be building up a safety net. You should be building towards financial independence so that if things do get worse and you lose your job, you lose your source of income for whatever reason, you at least know that you can make ends meet and can keep moving forward and can try to pick up the pieces. Financial independence is not about becoming super rich. It's about owning your time so that you're secure and flexible to make the decisions that you need to make or want to make. Many people, unfortunately, work to live. They don't work on something that they like. They work because they have to make ends meet. That's the unfortunate reality for so many people throughout the world, really. There are some people who do live to work, and we need those sorts of people. Those people often will work on maybe their own business, and they live for that business, and they create great things out of it. Maybe they live to work on a charity, and they do lots of good things with that. But oftentimes those people are financially independent in their own means so that they can make those decisions, those quote-unquote risky decisions. They can spend all their time on a charity rather than having to spend it just so they can pay their rent. I know this video is a lot more ranty than my usual videos, but I hope it inspires at least one person to take some sort of action, to move towards financial independence, to start investing if you haven't started already, to start educating yourself on how to prepare yourself for your financial future. Whether you think things are going to be good or bad in the future, at least pretend like they're going to be bad so that you're secure when they do end up becoming bad. And if they don't, it'll just be like you have a bonus. You still have the flexibility to make decisions if you want to make them, but you won't be forced to make a decision that you don't want to make. Moving towards financial independence will give someone more flexibility than they did before, so that if they want to take a job that pays less because they'll like it better, they can do that. Or if they want to take a risk and start a business, they can do that because their expenses are covered by their investments, their residual income, their passive income streams. Or, as is increasingly relevant today, if they lose their current main income source, they will have others to make up for it. It's important to diversify your income streams, and it's important to make sure that you're moving towards financial independence, whether you want to quit your job or not. Because you very easily could become another person who loses their job and has no savings to cover any sort of expenses after that. Don't become that person. Use the time and knowledge that you have right now, build on it, and put yourself in a better position for tomorrow. There are a lot of resources out there for getting educated. Hopefully my channel is one of them. There are lots of different great channels on YouTube, Graham Stephan, to name one of the OGs of financial education. Just take a look at some of these channels, blogs, everything that you can to learn about different financial products, learn about different investment strategies, and learn about ways that you can put yourself in a better position so that you have that flexibility and that security. But most importantly of all, if you liked this video, be sure to give it a like. It helps the channel out a lot. More people can hopefully see this, and maybe they become inspired, maybe they're pissed off, maybe they'll become more fearful about their own situation. I don't know. I just hope it gets people motivated to start doing something to put yourself in a better position. Otherwise, be sure to subscribe. I'll be putting out new videos every single week on other personal finance and investing topics. Maybe you can learn about a strategy you're not familiar with. I'll include a link to my house hacking video up above since I mentioned it in this video. And if you already feel like you're confident enough to start investing, go ahead and do it. Put yourself in a better position. And for those of you who are scared to start investing because you're scared you're going to lose money, look at it this way. If you took those $100 and put it into some investment and it loses 20%, isn't that better than losing 100% of it on something that you don't need whatsoever? Just keep that in mind. I'm rooting for you. Go make it happen. Till next time, take care.